This is a Squiz podcast. We're your shortcut to being informed.
The weekly wrap is the week in news and what's coming up. I'm Claire Kimball.
And I'm Jodie Speers.
Jodie, there have been a couple of big momentous decisions made since we spoke last week, one by the Australian people and one by a group of cardinals in the Vatican.
Yeah, there's definitely been a big voting theme, you could say, this week. We'll get you across the significance of both of those events. Also, tensions flare between India and Pakistan and some fascinating testimony in Victoria's mushroom murder trial.
Yep, I'm here for the Jodie mushroom update, that's for sure. We'll lighten it up with some recommendations as well. And there's a new News Club series dropping next week, so let's do it.
Let's do it.
This show is brought to you by HubSpot. Their AI-powered platform is helping you accomplish more than ever before. And their Breeze AI agents handle all the busy work so you can focus on growing your business. Jodie, I reckon the weekly wrap is really handy for all sorts of reasons. For example, if you hadn't told me last week that the Met Gala was about men's suiting, I would have been very confused when I started seeing the pictures when they started coming through.
Too many suits.
Yeah.
It wasn't just any old menswear that they were wearing. The theme was super fine, tailoring black style. And the quote from the experts, I think, was that the aim was exploring the indelible style of black dandies from the 18th century through to the present day.
Yeah, I have no idea what that means, but I do know what they ate on the night. For cocktail hour, the guests were served mini chopped cheeses, cornbread topped with caviar, and curry chicken patties, and for dinner, Creole roasted chicken with lemon emulsion rice and peas.
There was an amazing red carpet gallery that I've revisited a few times this week. We'll put a link to Vogue's selection of the best dressed in the show notes, although I don't know how they missed Demi Moore dressed as the world's most glamorous necktie. I thought that was so clever. There was a lot of white, which made me wonder how that would go with the curry chicken patties that you've just been talking about. That would inevitably be all over my dress.
I saw the all white. Yeah, it's a magnet for food, a very high-risk strategy, that's for sure.
Claire, let's start with the extraordinary federal election. And a week on, we're still not clear on the result in all of the seats.
There's still some very, very tight races that will come down to the postal and the absentee votes. They can take a few days to come in. They're open for a couple of weeks, so it takes a little bit of time. At a top line, though, the numbers in that 150-seat House of Representatives, it looks like 93 for Labor, 44 for the Coalition, 11 for the Independents. If you're good at mental maths, you will know that that doesn't add up to 150.
Not quite. That reaches 148. There's more than a couple of seats that are just too close to call at the moment, but taking an educated guess, that's how it's looking. All in all, a massive win for Anthony Albanese and Labor. It's rare to win 90 or more seats. It's only happened 3 times before when there were landslide victories accompanying a change of government.
Yeah, that's the unusual thing that's happened here. Certainly the Albanese government wasn't coming from opposition. They are a government that's seeking a second term.
This was a record-breaking election, particularly for the Liberal Party after they were defeated big time. Head to the Squiz shortcut from Thursday in the Squiz Today show if you want to go down that rabbit hole. But in pulling this together, you and I have thought long and hard about how we can be helpful on this.
Yeah. You can just rattle off a series of numbers and facts and all of that. But we thought the way to be helpful is probably get beyond the Labor won, the Liberals lost, the Greens tanked in the House of Reps. They also lost their leader, Adam Bant, and the Teals held on. One way we thought we could add some value was do a bit of an around the grounds of what happened across the country.
Yeah, I think that helps paint a picture. Let's start in Tassie, where Labor won 4 of the 5 seats, the headline being the Libs were banished there with the loss of Bass and Braddon.
Yeah, I remember from my days way back, Bass and Braddon are swing seats. They move essentially with sort of the trend of what's happening at the time. They fell to Labor this time. So Tassie has a Liberal state government, but now no federal MPs, which is really unusual. And our first mention of the Senate in this podcast, Jackie Lambie is struggling to hold on to her Senate seat. She's in a showdown with Pauline Hanson's daughter, Lee, of all people.
I wasn't across that until you told me that one.
Yeah.
They're still counting as we record on Friday. Let's go to South Australia. Of its 10 seats, 7 went to Labor and the Liberals were punted from Adelaide. Looks like the Libs have won 2 regional seats, but that's not even a certainty.
No, not even that's a certainty. So the seat of Grey, which if you look at the electoral map, covers about 90% of the territory of the state, like the area. I'm waving my arms around, pointing at my imaginary map.
I get you.
It's a seat that's been in Liberal hands for more than 30 years. It's still to be confirmed as a Liberal win, so it's a tight one too.
And in the South Australian Senate race, Labor looks like Charlotte Walker will win a seat, which wasn't expected. She turned 21 on election night.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Charlotte.
Yeah.
To Western Australia, 16 seats there. Labor's won 11 of them, and the Teal, Kate Chaney, held on in Curtin.
Yeah, so just to explain Curtin a bit, that was Julie Bishop's seat. She retired and it was lost to Kate Chaney as a Teal in the last election. Blue ribbon Liberal seat, it should be anyway, but Chaney won it. The Libs went even further backwards this time.
Labor is dominant in WA, and that's notable because it was the heartland for the Liberals until recent times, but the Liberals didn't pull it back at all there.
No. Not even a little bit. Moving to the Northern Territory as we go around our map. Again, I can wave my arms around, but we're going around in that direction. Labor's won 2 seats there. The talking point is, though, about Jacinta Nappinjimpa Price and what she did on Thursday requires a little bit of explaining. She's a senator. She's also a CLP member, which is the Country Liberal Party. Traditionally, their members sit with the Nationals when they get to Canberra, but on Thursday she said that she would sit with the Liberals.
Yeah, there's talk of leadership aspirations there. Senator Price is expected to run as Angus Taylor's deputy in the battle for the Liberal Party leadership. More on that in a moment. Reports say that Price only phoned the Nationals leader David Littleproud as she released her statement to the public.
And on any given week, that would be a huge political story. It would dominate the week, but we are where we are. What it points to, though, is this story about the parties in the coalition and how they're faring. It seems that things are fractured there. Also because Price and her growing profile, just to remind you, she's an Indigenous woman. She spearheaded the campaign against The Voice. She's a whole thing, but Jodie, for today, let's keep moving around our map.
We need to Queensland now. Last year, they changed their state government from Labor to the Liberal National Party. And in this election, the coalition won more seats than Labor, except Peter Dutton lost his seat.
Except for that.
That little thing.
I mean, wow. Just huge. It wasn't just in the seat of Dixon, though, that Labor claimed seats. Labor also defeated the LNP in Leichhardt, which is in far north Queensland. If you know a little bit about politics, you probably will have come across Warren Entsch, who is quite a big deal. He's a bit of a legend and a
character.
Former croc farmer. Warren retired and they've lost that seat. Also, the Labor Party picked up 2 metro seats from the Libs and Labor picked up 3 seats from the Greens. Just incredible there.
Absolutely. Again, Queensland has been another home base for the coalition, so the result there really was a sign of the problem. In New South Wales, it's a sea of red too.
So Labor had a great time when it came to Sydney. Out of the more than 20 seats in the state's capital, the Liberals might get 4 or 5. Nothing in the affluent east. When it comes to the North Shore, there's still a couple of seats that they've got to declare, but they haven't really converted in a way that they would have wanted to. And when we get to Western Sydney, that was a place where the coalition wanted to pick up seats, particularly targeting families struggling with their cost of living concerns. They really struggled there too.
Yeah, so of the 46 seats across New South Wales, 13 are with the coalition, and the conventional wisdom is if the coalition doesn't win in New South Wales, then it can't win the election. As for Victoria, Labor won 27 of the 38 seats there. Tim Wilson winning Goldstein from Zoe Daniel was one of the few highlights for the Libs.
one of the very few highlights. So Daniel, of course, is the former ABC journo. She had quite a profile. She was one of those high-profile teals who won in 2022. She defeated Tim Wilson last time around, and he was the only one of the 6 teals that took seats from moderate Libs who actually claimed it back. So it's no wonder that he's being spruiked as a future potential leader of the Liberal Party.
Yeah, some even think that he should have a go now. We haven't forgotten the ACT. It is very much a Labor town, so situation normal there. But there's one close race with a teal ahead in the seat of Bean. So when it comes to what to make of it all, there are some big, meaty questions, Claire, to answer on how the Liberal Party will arrest their decline.
Yeah, and look, probably the first cab off the rank is the question about who's going to lead them going forward. It's always a huge thing, of course, who the leader of the Federal Liberal Party is, but this time it feels even heavier because of all of the questions that have to be answered about the future direction of the party. And just on that, with the leadership contenders, Angus Taylor is Conservative, so aligned to Peter Dutton and Tony Abbott when it comes to that style of politics. Dan Tehan is another one being touted. He's from Victoria, from the Western Districts. He's not a Metro member. He's from the centre-right, so that was the faction that Scott Morrison led until he lost the election in 2022. And then you get to Susan Ley. So she's the most senior member of the moderate faction. She's the only one of the group, as we're recording this on Friday, who has actually in public declared her hand that she wants the leadership.
Yeah, there's a lot to play out before the Liberals get to pick their next leader. They will wait until the results have been declared. Who it is and how they go about making the party an attractive alternative to Labor will definitely be a topic that we return to, I would say.
I reckon we might be talking about that a bit. One question that hasn't had a lot of attention is, what is Prime Minister Anthony Albanese going to do with this incredible win? How are they going to govern? It's such a rare opportunity that he has with the sort of numbers that he has in the House of Representatives, and also picking up seats in the Senate as well. Essentially, it's a mandate from the people of Australia to pursue his agenda.
Yeah, Labor only needs the support of the Greens to get their legislation through the Senate now. I saw the PM talk late in the week about the importance of not being arrogant. He has been around long enough, Albo, to have seen the excitement of being on top of the world after a win like the one that he's had. So I think he's learnt some lessons on what not to do.
Yeah, it's very easy to allow this sort of rush of blood to the head and to want to go after policies that in normal times would actually be really tricky to convert, like work choices for the Howard government, which was huge industrial relations reforms, or on the other side of politics, like the emissions trading scheme and climate policies that the Rudd government pursued. They both came after really big election wins and they really went for it, but they tanked with voters after that.
Yeah, I remember that well from my time in Canberra too. It can be a double-edged sword, really. I think that that's a pretty good hit out for now. Lots of questions still to answer, and I can't wait to see how things unfold.
In the age of AI, you need business software that's easy to use and actually delivers results fast. That's what makes HubSpot's approach to AI so refreshing. Do more with less stress, thanks to Breeze, their suite of AI tools. Breeze agents handle busy work for you, creating marketing content and finding sales leads and handling customer service questions. And Breeze Copilot gives you the right info at the right time, so you can always stay 2 steps ahead. Customers are selling faster and saving hours on work every week. Visit hubspot.com/AI to get started today.
All right, moving on to some other big news stories this week. There's plenty to choose from.
There really is. It's been a big news week. I know we say that every week, but it really has.
It hasn't slowed down.
The United States and the UK reaching a deal on tariffs, that was pretty big. US President Donald Trump also reaching a deal with the Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen. Chinese President Xi Jinping took a trip to Russia to meet with Vladimir Putin. And probably one of the biggest stories, Valerie Minnie Dachshund, she returned to her family after her Kangaroo Island adventure.
Unfortunately, we're not going to get to those, not even Valerie. We will start with another election result. An American is the new Pope.
Robert Prevost is his name. He's a 69-year-old. He's going to be the 267th occupant of the throne of St. Peter, which means he's the Pope. He's going to be known as Leo XIV. He's also considered to be from Latin America. He spent many, many years as a missionary in Peru.
Yeah, he has Peruvian nationality, and it was Pope Francis who made him an archbishop there. And in 2023, Francis brought him to Rome, where he was appointed as the head of the office that vets bishop nominations.
It's said to be one of the most important roles when it comes to the Catholic Church. If you wanted to look at this from a strategic, maybe political point of view, it's interesting to look at how Francis left the church organisations. So when it came to the conclave, 80% of the cardinals who went into that room were appointed by Pope Francis.
Yeah, that's the main reason why the reports are saying that it's not all that surprising that someone like Prevost was elected, even if it was only 2 years ago that he was appointed as a cardinal. Those choosing the new Pope were cardinals that Francis favoured.
Yeah, and as for the kind of Pope that he will be, given that background, reports are saying that he'll probably pick up where Francis left off. For example, he's believed to have shared Francis's views on things like migrants, the poor, the environment, particularly advocating for the church being more involved in those sorts of issues.
Just on that, Pope Leo has taken on American Vice President J.D. Vance over the Trump administration's deportation policies. He did that on social media. So it only took a couple of hours for the far-right media and commentators in the US to start calling him the woke Pope.
Woke Pope. It's a nice little rhyming couplet, isn't it? I'm sure this isn't related, but former President Barack Obama was very quick to congratulate him. Obama's home base is Chicago, and it's where Pope Leo was born, so that seems to fit. And sort of looking a bit more into his background, apparently he likes a weekly game of tennis.
So does Anthony Albanese, incidentally. So maybe they could celebrate their election wins together and have a bit of a hit out on the court.
I think Albanese is also Catholic.
He is.
So, look, someone needs to make that happen. Jodie, let's move on to the escalating tensions between India and Pakistan in that border region of Kashmir. This is another occasion that we're using that term, escalating tensions.
Yeah, it's had a bit too much of a workout in recent times. What's happened this week is India launched strikes on Pakistan and Pakistani Kashmir on Wednesday. Then on Thursday, India's army accused Pakistan of launching drones and missiles on military bases in India and Indian-administered Kashmir.
Yeah, the Pakistani government denies that that happened, though. This is a situation that goes back almost 80 years. It goes back to a time when India and Pakistan gained their independence from Britain. Kashmir is in the foothills of the Himalayas. Both of those countries claim it in full. Each controls a section of the territory, though, hence these terms, Indian-administered Kashmir and Pakistani Kashmir.
And to get to the heart of what's happening now, there have always been many in Indian-administered Kashmir who either want to be part of Pakistan or want to be an independent state, so it's quite complex. That has resulted in ongoing violence, and Wednesday's military action from India was called Operation Sindoor. That targeted what they said was terrorist infrastructure on the Pakistan side.
Yeah, and that word Sindoor has some significance as well. It refers to the red vermilion powder that's worn by married Hindu women, Hindus being, of course, the majority of the population in India. They wear it on their part line of their hair. It's sort of this brilliant red colour. That's a reference to a terror attack on the 22nd of April on the Indian side of that line in Kashmir that killed 26 men, leaving many women widowed.
About 60 people have been killed this week in those tit-for-tat strikes, and there are real fears now that things will spiral. The US and other countries are urging both sides to just try and cool things down.
Yeah, there's been wars fought over that area in the past, and one thing hovering over this is that both sides have nuclear weapons, so that's a factor in all of it as well. All in all, the experts say that the world just got a little bit more unsafe this week. So hopefully that's given you your bearings on that. But Jodie, in truth, as I said at the top, I'm just here today for your mushroom update.
It seems like we have several listeners who are as intrigued as I am by the Erin Patterson murder trial, otherwise known as the Death Cap mushroom case that we spoke about last last week in Weekly Wrap.
Yeah, and week 2 of those proceedings in Victoria's Gippsland region have wrapped up. We thought it was worth another update.
Yeah, just to explain the process for those who aren't familiar, a criminal trial, I think, can be split into 4 sort of basic parts, and these always take place in the same order every time. So you've got the opening statements, you get a bit of an outline of each case. Then the prosecution presents its case, so it calls certain witnesses. The defence can cross-examine them as they go. That's usually the meatier part of the trial. The defence then presents its case, which sometimes can be quite short because they don't have the onus of proof. Then you have the closing statements, the judge sums up, and then the jury goes out to deliberate.
And look, you put me and us as a collective group here at Weekly Wrap onto the ABC Mushroom Case Daily podcast. I had a listen to that as I was walking Tucker on Saturday morning, and it was a really good wrap up at the end of that week too. It put for me on notice, the thing to watch for this week was Ian Wilkinson. He was the only guest to survive that lunch. He was giving his evidence and he told the court that he was happy to be invited to Erin's place and described what happened at the lunch.
Yeah, he spoke about how his wife, Heather, was quite keen to have a look at Erin's pantry when they went over. They hadn't been to her house before, and Erin apparently seemed reluctant to let her do so. Ian also described how his wife and her sister Gail offered to help plate up the lunch, as you do when you're a polite guest
What can I do?
somebody's
How can I help?
house. Exactly. Yeah. And Erin said, no, thank you. I've got it all sorted.
Yeah, exactly. And Ian became critically ill from that beef Wellington meal. He described being rushed to hospital and down the corridor to urgent care after doctors suspected that it had contained death cap mushrooms.
Yeah, you can only imagine how terrifying that would be to go through. Erin Patterson's defence case is that the whole thing was a terrible accident and she didn't intentionally poison these guests. The court was played video evidence from her daughter this week, who was aged 9 at the time of these alleged murders. She told police that she was out at the movies when this lunch was happening and they were discussing adult stuff she heard at the lunch, but that her mum later complained of feeling sick and having diarrhoea.
Yeah, and apparently Erin Patterson became quite emotional when that video was played. The court also heard from medical staff who dealt with that group when they did arrive in hospital.
Yeah, some of them drew comparisons between the serious illness of the guests, which was obvious from their presentation and also from their blood test results, and Erin Patterson herself, who seemed okay.
Yeah, and one nurse told the court that Erin didn't look unwell, whereas others could barely lift their heads off the pillow. There was clearly a difference there in their condition. A doctor also outlined that Erin came to the hospital, then left, and then she came back again. She seemed really reluctant to go under any sort of scrutiny from the medical staff there.
Yeah, this I thought was a really interesting witness. Dr. Chris Webster was his name, an ER doctor, and he had seen how drastically a couple of these lunch guests had deteriorated since arriving at the hospital. So he was understandably alarmed when Erin showed up saying that she had had the same meal as them. He leapt into action to treat her, but he says that Erin seemed to just want to leave the hospital, and the jury was then shown CCTV of her walking out of the hospital 5 minutes after she arrived.
They then heard the audio of this 000 call that Dr. Webster made to the police asking for help to get her back to the hospital, given that her life could be in danger. That was his main concern.
Yeah, it showed, I thought, just how panicked he was to be ringing 000 to get police help.
Yeah.
And I think the prosecution was trying to highlight how concerned he was in comparison to how seemingly unconcerned Erin was. She did eventually return to the hospital, I think about 45 minutes later, and the police then, instead of collecting her, were sent to go through her bin and bring back some of the leftovers to the hospital.
The court also heard from some of Erin's Facebook friends this week. She apparently was part of this true crime group, and they discussed cases on Facebook, including that one of Kelly Lane. She was the Sydney water polo player who was convicted of murdering her newborn daughter Tegan. That's what they were there to do, but they discussed other things as well.
Yeah, they sort of became friends. I must admit I am a member of a couple of these true crime Facebook groups, so I sort of get the dynamic. Sort of ironic, isn't it, that Erin Patterson was a member of this group, given this would be exactly the sort of case that people in those groups would now be discussing.
Yeah, exactly. That what were they discussing? And 3 witnesses in the trial found themselves caught up sort of in the middle of this case, which is quite extraordinary when you think about how they came together and how they came to know her. They told the court that Erin mentioned several times how much she loved mushrooms, that she even posted pictures of this dehydrator that she had bought to dry them out. There was some evidence about her talking about putting powder in her kids' meals and that they didn't know as some sort of vegetable uptake thing anyway.
Yeah, I hide zucchini and carrot in muffins, but I haven't done dried mushrooms.
Dried mushrooms, there you go. They also painted a different picture of Simon Patterson, who is Erin's estranged husband, based on what Erin had told them. She had told those friends on that Facebook group that he was quite controlling. So that was a whole element as well to throw into the mix. Jodie, one question that I've got, I'm sure plenty do, is Erin Patterson herself going to take the stand?
We don't know yet. It's pretty rare for accused murderers to give evidence in their own defence. It really depends on the legal advice that they're given. I've seen it happen, but it doesn't happen often. So we'll have to wait and see what the defence has in store here.
Yeah, it's still going. So another few weeks to go on this trial.
About 4 weeks.
Jodie, what's coming up in the week ahead? Sunday is Mother's Day. I'm wondering what your plans are.
We are taking my mum and my husband's mum out for lunch with a bunch of the family, the kids and everyone, so that'll be nice. Although a friend of mine told me that her plan that she's announced to her family is to spend the day in bed watching shows all day on her own and to put a little bell by the bed to ring when she wants some snacks. And I thought, this mum has got it sorted.
That sounds like a dream scenario, to be honest. Well, have a great day.
Thank you.
Have a great day to all the mums who are listening. I hope you people are looking after you. Bells may be included. We'll
Snacks.
see how we go. Australian Fashion Week kicks off on Monday in Sydney. There's a few changes to that this year.
Yeah, the big one is that the Australian Fashion Council has taken over from IMG in running the event. That's the International Management Group, which is a global sports, fashion, events and media company that's headquartered in New York. That brings it more in line with how fashion weeks are run in places like New York and London. The AFC says they've basically had to rebuild the whole thing from the ground up, and the focus now is on restoring trust in the event.
Yeah, in recent times there's been big question marks about whether that event is actually viable. So it's good to see them really get it off the ground with new approaches to that. We don't need to spell it out. It's been a really tough year for a lot of fashion designers and brands. There's been a lot of closures of retail brands, and when it comes to those who are really sort of pushing the boat out in that space, doing it really tough. There's the rise of these fast fashion giants. Also, they're running bang into the impact of US tariffs.
Yeah, challenging, particularly those Aussie brands that are making clothes in China and then exporting them to the US. They're now being hit with a 164% tariff, which is just not really feasible. It's not just clothes, that's any business in that situation.
Yeah, I was reading this week, there's about 12,000 Australian businesses that actually do business in the United States. So how those tariffs are hitting, it's going to be an evolving story, that one. Also this week, early Tuesday, our time, the trial of the music and fashion entrepreneur Sean Combs, of course known as P. Diddy. That trial begins in the United States. He's pleaded not guilty to sex trafficking and racketeering charges. Racketeering essentially means that he's accused of committing crimes as part of an organised group.
Yeah, the allegations also include kidnapping, drugging and coercing women into sex. It's all pretty dark. The trial is expected to run for at least 8 weeks, and of course lots of speculation about which celebrities might be name-dropped or called to testify as witnesses.
A media circus is what that is going to be. Also on Tuesday, President Trump kicks off a 3-day tour of the Middle East, stopping in Saudi Arabia, Qatar and the UAE.
Yeah, one thing that has been making headlines is that he's expected to announce if the US will start referring to the Persian Gulf as the Arabian Gulf. If that's giving you some flashbacks to Trump renaming things on day one of his presidency, this one is a little bit more layered.
Yeah, renaming things is a bit of a skill.
Specialty.
And he certainly made it his own. It's a thing in this situation because it's the waterway that's really long been a point of tension. Iran calls it the Persian Gulf. Other Arab nations like Saudi Arabia and the UAE call it the Arabian Gulf or just the Gulf. Iran and the United States are currently in talks around a nuclear deal. And this week, Iran's foreign minister came out to say that if the US goes ahead with a name change in terms of how they officially refer to that area, it would bring, and this is the quote, the wrath of all Iranians from all walks of life and political persuasion in Iran, the US and across the world.
As for why Trump might make the change, analysts reckon it could be a way to get their supporters in the region more on board with US efforts, particularly around Israel.
Yeah, there's always some motive, I guess, behind a lot of these actions. Wednesday, it's the start of the Eurovision Song Contest. Sydney-based singer and TikToker Marty Zambotto, he goes by the name Gojo. He will be representing Australia and his song is called Milkshake Man.
Our producer Annelise sent the YouTube video into our WhatsApp chat. Did you watch?
I did.
And laugh?
Look, it's hard to explain. We'll put the link in the episode notes. You can make of it what you will. Look, I thought it was pretty nifty getting the words lactose free into the lyrics. It's very quirky.
Very 2025 and very Eurovision, really.
Yeah.
On Thursday, it is Game 2 of the Women's State of Origin. It's being played in Sydney and it's a must-win for Queensland. And to wrap up, on Friday, the F1 in Italy begins.
Go Oscar Piastri. It's super exciting what he's doing. He's, of course, the Australian who's driving for McLaren. He's on a bit of a winning streak. So go the Melbourne boy.
Go Oscar.
Recommendations this week. I picked this up in the Saturday Squiz newsletter. If you subscribe to that, you would have seen that. If you're not, you should absolutely go and subscribe. It's the new Netflix series called The Four Seasons. It's a Tina Fey production. It's got Steve Carell in it and other famous people whose names I will never remember because I'm not that person. But it's funny. I thought it was interesting because it hits, I think, probably my age group, those sort of heading into their 40s and 50s and about relationships and their marriages and how they actually still relate to each other as a friendship group was really, really interesting. It's based on an Alan Alda movie from the 80s, and I adore Alan Alda. Of course, he was the guy in MASH. He was in The West Wing as well,
some
remember?
good nostalgia.
Yeah. It's great. If you need something to watch, it's a winner.
How long are the eps?
They're only about 30 minutes.
Perfect.
Isn't it a great format?
I need that.
Yeah,
can't do 2 hours.
Exactly.
This week I'm recommending Fashion Critical, just in case you haven't heard of it. The Met Gala really reminded me of how much Fashion Critical is the highlight of these sorts of red carpet events for me. She's an Aussie sort of fashion commentator who posts these albums on Facebook every time there's a big event, and she's absolutely hilarious. It's just my favourite part of those events now.
I love her. She's got some particular sayings. I love any woman who is in a dress and it's all creased in the front. It's catch the bus,
Should have caught the
love.
bus.
Yeah. Should be standing up. You shouldn't be hitting the red carpet with creases in your dress, particularly in your crotch.
Oh,
That's
I'm
not
also
good.
conscious when I put on the open toe shoes of the toes,
The toes.
violation.
Yes, you've got to make an effort with your toes, according to Fashion Critical. Yeah, good one. We'll have those links in the episode notes. Squiz Press, when it comes to what we're talking about ourselves this week, the next limited series on News Club will start rolling out next week. It's called The Call Sheet. Bryce from Squiz Kids, of course, he used to be a journalist with the Financial Review and Woman's Weekly and the Daily Telly, and he has this whole entertainment background as well. He used to be an entertainment reporter. Also Andrew, of course, from Squiz Today, who, again, has this whole entertainment background. He actually does formal reviews of entertainment, games, shows, movies, all that kind of stuff. He has a weekly spot on 6PR in Perth, so he still operates in that area. They're stepping into Kate's shoes to take a bit of space there, a series on the Australian entertainment industry. So we're talking to producers and writers and directors.
Oh, Bryce and Andrew will be perfect for that. Can't wait to listen.
It's interesting, I think, for people who like News Club because, as we just have done, we like to be rounded people, and I need to know what to watch, or I've watched The Dry, for example, the Aussie movie. I'm fascinated about how that was made.
Yeah, it's
and
not my
how-
specialty, that area, so I love to hear the background behind the scenes.
So the business of and what it means. So we're looking forward to taking that on. The first episode is with Peter Grester. Of course, he was the Australian journo who was arrested and convicted in Egypt during a really politically unstable time.
Yeah.
A movie on his life has just been released. So we wanted to talk to him about, how do you write a book and get a movie made about your life?
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
He's got a fascinating story.
Yeah, so his first cab off the rank, that will drop on Wednesday, and really looking forward to hearing how that series rolls out.
Yeah, I love it.
I think that's it for us this week. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend. We'll be back next week.
See you then.
A huge thanks to HubSpot for supporting today's episode. With their AI-powered customer platform, your marketing, sales and service teams can move faster, accomplish more and stress less.